Okay, hello, this is Lawrence W. Moore here. Welcome to the return of Sunday Night Synthesis. I'm here with my assistant Crafty. I'm going to dispense with like an intro video with my series LWM Music News. You'll have plenty of time to look at my visage. And in any case, in this Sunday Night Synthesis, I want to get straight to the topic. One of my viewers left a comment about a Eurorack modeling software and collection of plugins called VCV Rack. And so tonight, if you haven't encountered this yet, I'm going to show it to you. And because I hadn't heard of it before, so I thought it might be a good thing for folks to become aware of it. But first, since the website's new, I just want to show you that basically on the main page, I'll add whatever my latest video is, as well as the most recent news. And if you want to go back through the news, there will always be this thing on the bottom to go to more news, which takes you to the news page, and you can see more news. But the other videos, tutorials, and my music and things are all located and organized in these other pages. For example, anything that's associated with learning, like learning synthesis with pure data. The series can be found here, Learning Electronic Music Production with Reason. And then this one, Sunday Night Synthesis, can be found here. We're in the third season, so you would scroll down to season 3, and this is episode 7. But since you're watching it now, you have found it. But this is how you can find the others. As well, you can go to the YouTube channel. I have my social media icons right up here in the top, and so you could click YouTube and go straight to my channel. So, in any case, here's VCV Rack's webpage. It's vcvrack.com. I could leave a link in the description, but it's pretty easy to get to. vcvrack.com. And what it is it has a core system that you can install, and then it has a series of different plugins that basically are a series of modules. Like this one here, Fundamental, is one of the free plugins, and it has a whole series of modules in it. And in this little overview that I'm going to give you, I'm just using free plugins, the free modules that I've downloaded. In order to download VCV Rack and manage the system, you need to create a user account and register. And then when you do that, you can go to Plugin Manager here from their home page. And actually here's where you can log in, register. Right now it says log out because I'm logged in. And this is where it shows you what you have. The ones in red, as you see, they all say free because those are the ones I downloaded. Those are ones I have, and if I hit the red button, it would uninstall them. But there's others that are for sale here as well. I've only installed the free ones, and they give you plenty to work with. But if you are interested in any of the others, they seem to be pretty reasonably priced, and you just, would just purchase the ones that you're interested in using. But it seems to be a fairly thriving community of developers right now. They do have a GitHub page here and so forth. So if you're a developer, you can get into that. I haven't looked into the development for it yet because largely I make things in Pure Data, C Sound, Reactor, and so forth, and I've only dabbled in coding. So that might be something I'll get into in the future. But in any case, let me show you how it works. So as you see, you can download the system for Windows, Mac, in Linux. And here it is. I have it installed already, and as you see, it's a series of racks, and you can keep scrolling through and make rather large systems. And I'm just going to give you an intro to some of the basic ones so that you can get started and then maybe start playing around with some of the others and so forth, just to give you some exposure. Up here you can set your sampling rate. I have it set to 48. There's a file menu here so you can open things. It has a default setting where basically whatever your last rack was, it'll call it up. And I just cleared it out so that, you know, we can build from scratch. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit because it'll be easier for you to see some of the controls. I'm here in the upper left hand corner. As you see, it does have its own zoom controls and the opacity of cables and so forth. You can see how that integrates in a minute. But here, you know, this is where you can log in to the software itself, and if there's some plugins that you selected from the page, there'd be a little notification mark here saying, you know, that there's plugins to update or that you have in your system now. And here this manage plugins takes you straight to the manage plugins page on their website that I just showed you. So in any case, when you want to add modules, you just right click and space, and there's different sets. Core is one of the ones that I believe it comes with. I don't think you have to actually download it as a separate plugin. I believe it comes with it, but it's got your basics here. For example, we're going to put in this one here, a MIDI to CV interface. Now if you're not totally familiar with some of the terminology of analog synthesis, basically CV was the way that in hardware synthesis, analog synthesis, voltage was used to communicate from one module to another. It's not an audio signal, really. That's a different voltage, but it's a control voltage, and that's what it stands for, CV. And so, since we're going to be using a MIDI keyboard here, I have a controller keyboard hooked up. Basically what this is symbolizing, I'm selecting my keyboard here, is that it's going to take MIDI input and it would be converting it to control voltage signals. Now it's not really doing that because this is all digital anyway, it's in the software, but it's using the terminology and basically the types of connections that are in analog synthesis and models what you would find in Eurorack modules. So this is what you start with. If you want to use this with a DAW, you can install a MIDI loopback or a virtual MIDI connections. I have one installed called Loop MIDI, and although it's not appearing right now, not sure why. Maybe I just need to, you know, wake it up or something like that, or restart the computer. But I can leave a link to Loop MIDI's website. It's created by a developer named Tobias Eriksson. It's a free download. So you could use something like that to connect it virtually to a DAW so that a MIDI channel could be routed from your DAW straight to VCV Rack or straight to one of these interfaces. And you could have multiple ones. You could put multiple instruments in here and so forth, all with different MIDI channels. So my keyboard transmits on MIDI channel 1, and then basically this would be your pitch out right here, 1 volt per octave. And then this gate basically transmits whether a key's been pressed down or released. It doesn't carry velocity information. That's carried here. So that if you want your MIDI velocity, like how quickly you hit the key. If you want that to be affecting something, you would run a cable from here to something. And it has mod wheel, pitch wheel, and aftertouch. There is another module here, MIDI control. No, that's clock. MIDI CC, continuous controller to CV. And this is an interface where then you could take all sorts of MIDI controllers that you set. You could set their controller numbers and have them send out these virtual CV messages to your modules and so forth. And here you could set it to your MIDI device and what channel to receive on just as well. So if you have a controller keyboard with extra knobs on it, you can use it. I'm going to delete this now because I'm just going to keep it basic. So the next thing I'm going to put in is a oscillator so that we can start making sound. And under the fundamental, this is one of the free plugins, and it's one you'll want to download because it has very fundamental modules in it. We're going to start off with VCO1. VCO2 is also an oscillator, but it has more functions to it. Let's just start with VCO1 for now. And here it is. It's got a frequency knob on it for detuning the oscillator, a fine-tuning knob for small changes in frequency. It has pulse width. This will only really have effect if you are using the square wave output here. And this is FM, CV. This is where you can receive, like from an LFO, some CV signals that would modulate the pitch up and down and so forth. And then PWM CV, this is where you control the level of pulse width modulation. These kind of go in tandem with these inputs down here. Here's where you receive the FM signal, and as you turn this up, you hear the amount of FM, the amount of modulation or its depth increase. And the same thing with pulse width modulation here. And we're going to keep it simple for now and just hook up our 1 volt per octave to its corresponding input here. And you see the cable is connected. If you ever want to disconnect cables, you just disconnect them and let them go. Rather simple. And now what this would do is MIDI notes, if I play them, are now generating signals that are sent out, all 4 of these. And each one emits a different wave shape of the 4 basic wave shapes: sine, triangle, saw, and square. And quite simple, if we want to hear it, we need to go back to the core group of modules and go to audio interface. Now here, I do have an ASIO interface, but it's not turned on right now. I'm just using the direct sound since I'm capturing. You know, I'm just using the built-in sound card right now, so I'm going to set it for direct sound. And the audio device is my Sound Blaster Recon 3D. And here we have the sampling rate. I'm going to make it match what's above 48. Here's your buffer size. The lower the buffer size, the quicker response is. But if you hear things distorting or choppy or sounding choppy, you increase it. 256 seems to be good for when you're using direct sound, or basically your more basic protocols. So if you're using ASIO, probably you could drop it down to 128 and so forth. But anyway, I'm going to connect the sine wave up here to channel 1. And we hear a sine tone coming out of channel 1, which is the left side. There, I'm playing different notes on the keyboard. But anyway, as you can hear, the sound just keeps sustaining and everything. Because when you're working with modular synthesis, you need to use different modules to work with that. Now, a good addition here would be to first include an envelope. And under fundamental, there's one of our very common types of envelopes, ADSR. What this does is this shapes the amplitude of the sound coming in. And so what you want to do is hook up your gate out here. This is a signal that it'll stimulate an envelope to go on when the key's pressed, and then release when the key is released. And you connect it to the gate input right here on this module. Okay. Now what this does is this outputs CV signals for your attack, decay, sustain, and release to an amplifier. So you need to use this in conjunction with a VCA or like module. In other plugins there might be different types of VCAs, but Fundamental has this basic VCA. And there's actually two sections to it. You see the top half and the bottom half look the same. And when I was playing with this, I found a very good use for that. But anyway, I'll explain that as we go. So basically, we want to take the output from here. This is the shape of our amplitude. And we could put it in the linear or the exponential inputs here. I like exponential, has a better feel to it. And so this shape will then go into the amplifier and shape the amplifier. Now the amplifier receives the signal from your oscillator into its input here, and then it'll output the signal that is being shaped by the ADSR through the exponential input and put it out your sound card. Has a bit of a slow attack to it right now, so I'm going to speed that up. Oops, hold on. Why is it jumping down like that? Maybe it doesn't like my magnifier. I was using the magnifier before. Well, I was able to turn it down. It just jumps away for some reason. Maybe it has something to do with the screen capture. So anyway, I made the attack quicker. So what you hear, that boom, boom at the beginning, is the decay time of how long the attack will be up. Yeah, as I move knobs, it seems to want to go away. Here, let's zoom out real quick. So you can hear that punctuated attack lasts longer as I turn this up. Your sustain is the level of the sustain. That's what happens after the attack and decay. The more you turn it up, the more the sustained part of the sound will be closer to the loudness of the attack. Turn it down a bit. And you still hear that more pronounced attack. Let's switch sounds here. The sine wave is kind of dull, so I'm going to put sawtooth in here. Let's make it more punctuated by turning down the decay time. So there you go, you have a little bit of a pronounced articulation at the beginning. And you release, if you make this longer, after you release the key, it fades out longer. And so there you go, there's some basic sound. Now, one thing is, it doesn't matter how hard I hit the keys, things are the same level. Well, there's a way of fixing that. Let me zoom in on it here. This I discovered through some experimentation. I'm not the sort that likes to read manuals. And so what I discovered is we're going to move stop that a second. We're going to move, well actually I can just connect it up here. We're going to move our inputs to the top part of the level thing here. Or actually, yeah. You could do this the opposite way, leave these connected down here, and then do what I'm going to do to the top one. It's up to you. But this has an input to it, you see, that's receiving the sawtooth. And it has, actually I'm going to keep this down here. So right now the sawtooth is going in here, and there's nothing to shape its amplitude. Except I'm going to hook up velocity. You can go exponential or linear. I like the feeling of the exponential better. And so now my velocity is shaping its amplitude. And then I can take it out from here, put it in here, where the ADSR shape goes over top of that. And then I can go out from here into the interface. So we get a little bit of volume control through velocity. Ah, man. Here, let me zoom out so I can move this knob without it jumping away from me. I'm going to turn this up though here. And maybe turn it up here a bit. I have my output levels down on the sound card's output so that you can hear my voice above the sound more easily. So if that sounds a little quiet, that's why. So there you go. So now we have velocity control over loudness. Now there's another thing I'd like to do here in our little basic, tour of some of these modules. This is all coming out the left side, which is kind of annoying. Well, there's a quick way to fix that. I'm going to insert from the Bifaco series here. There's a mixer. Now what this is 4 knobs, 4 ins, and then 2 outputs for your mix. And it basically, these knobs allow you to mix the levels of things coming in. But one other thing it does, if I hook this output into here, and then I'll need to turn this up because we're coming into input 1, and if it's all the way down you don't hear it. And then I'm taking its outputs and I'm putting it to 1 and 2. Now we're coming out both sides. So, there are other ways of doing it too. That was just a quick and easy way to do it that I found. And there you go. There's some of the basic modules. I think maybe I'll show you one more thing. In case you're curious about polyphony, because right now this is all monophonic. Under core, oh, it's not under core. Wait a minute, hold on. Quad MIDI. This will give you 4-voice polyphony. So you could use this in place of this. And then you'll want to use also multiple oscillators and so forth, so you can get 4-voice polyphony and then mix them. That's why this thing is really useful. You could have 4 VCOs, you mix them together, and then put the ADSR and VCA in there too. where they would be kind of like on the mixed signal. But if you have left and right, I haven't found one yet, but it might be nice if there was just a panner module, but there might be. I just didn't find it yet. So in any case, let's see. So I at least showed you that, but I wanted to put in one more thing, very common thing that you'll want to use. I'm moving these over. It's actually quite easy to move these modules around and organize things. But I basically want to put this, I'm putting things in signal order, kind of. I'm going to disconnect my sawtooth out here, because this is going to go into, under fundamental, there's a VCF right here. And so this is a voltage controlled filter. Voltage controlled oscillator, voltage controlled filter, voltage controlled amplifier. Although there's no voltage here, except when it comes out the sound card. It's just using the terminology of analog synthesis. So I'm going to take this sawtooth, I'm going to go in here, and then you have two outputs. If you want a low pass filter or a high pass filter. Low pass filter will take the sawtooth wave and it will cut out frequencies, its spectra, above a certain point that you set using the frequency knob here. You can also set it up so that that frequency can be adjusted, like for example with the mod wheel, and we'll do that in a minute. But first let's just continue this chain here. Where were we going in? Right here. Yep. And so now the sawtooth's going in here where it's getting filtered, and it's going out into the input here. And just like before, the level thing over here where my velocity controls the level then goes into here where the ADSR envelope shapes it, and then it goes out into the mixer so I can get stereo. So anyway, as you see, it's cutting off a lot of the frequencies. Hold on, I'm gonna have to zoom out again so it doesn't jump away. And we could turn up the resonance, which is the emphasis on this cutoff frequency. So the 12 o'clock position's right around where your fundamental is, making it sound close to a sine wave, because it's cutting out all the harmonics and partials above. Well, harmonics in this case, since it's a sawtooth wave. So, what else do we have here? Well, let me zoom in and show you what we can do. Let's say you want to control that with your mod wheel. You can take your mod wheel's output here and pop it into frequency. Here's an input where you can control the resonance level too. And there's a curve setting too. But let's just do this for now. I'm playing a note and I'm moving the mod wheel, nothing's happening. What I found that you gotta do is here, let's zoom out again. Darn it, this is a pain in the butt. There we go. That knob allows you to set how much of an effect your input here has on the frequency up here. So this is kind of like if I turn it up all the way, my mod wheel moves a whole wide range, but you could turn that down a little bit and it's a little bit more more useful, I believe. So there you go. That's how that works. We heard what resonance does. Hold on, let me move my mod wheel up. Okay, and then over here, let me zoom in again. This is kind of like a fine tune for the frequency. It doesn't move at a great degree. Now here, curve. What this seems to do is, you notice before with the curve turned down, as I turn up the resonance, you see how it's sucking a lot out of the signal and emphasizing the resonance frequency a lot. And as you turn it down, you hear more of the other signal come back in. As you turn up the curve, what I could hear is like a curve on where the cutoff frequency is and its resonance kind of like extend further down, so it's less of a steep cutoff on the cutoff frequency. And so you hear more of the lower frequencies kind of fold back in. So that's what that does. And it's a nice setting to have there, because basically a low pass passes things below a cutoff point, and the cutoff can be either steep or less steep as you adjust the curve here. Now let me just do this before we call it quits for this session. I'm going to hook up the square in here. Ah, it's jumping on me again before it stopped doing it. So it's on the square wave that you would hear the pulse width change. And just because I don't want to have to add the continuous controller thing, my mod wheel right now is controlling the cutoff frequency. Let's take the pitch bend here, although it might normally not really be used for this. And now the print's too small, I can't see what to hook it up to. Pitch bend we're going to hook up to, here's the pulse width modulation. That's filtering. So now I'm going to bend up and down, nothing. I just heard changes because of the mod wheel. It's on the same joystick. So now, jumped away, but I was successful in turning this up. So now, that's pulse width modulation there. So just like before, the more you turn up this knob, the more it allows your controller to change the pulse width modulation. So this is like a regulator for this. And the same thing here with FM. This FM would regulate how much FM change it would allow coming in here. For example, I'm just going to move this over here. Now the pitch bend wheel's going into here. No change when I use a pitch bend wheel, but then I turn this up. And now the pitch bend wheel is being used like it normally would. So you can regulate here how far it bends up and down from the central pitch. Now if you hooked an LFO up to this, you could have modulation of your frequency. Yeah, let's do that real quick before we go. Here, let's move this over. The LFO is about as wide as a regular oscillator module. You don't have to use just the one rack level. I could pop it in below. Depends on how you want to organize your racks. Let's put it right here. LFO 1. So now it has the same shapes. How about we use a nice curvy sine wave shape? Oh, I gotta disconnect this first. FM's being controlled by the mod wheel, pitch bend, so let's get that out of there and have it controlled by sine wave output from here. Let me turn up the cutoff frequency so we can hear it better. And now I'm going to increase the frequency. Sorry, jumps away when I use these knobs. Now this has an input here. I'm going to disconnect the mod wheel from here. Just set the frequency there so we can hear a sound. And I'm going to put the mod wheel in control of the frequency. So this is once again like a regulator controlling how much your control voltage effect here affects the frequency. Now I'm going to move it down to the 12 o'clock position. And let's say I want a range like this. This is my maximum. Now over here is where the FM's coming in. And if you turn this down, you're turning down the amount. Right now I have my mod wheel all the way down. Now, what you would use is I've seen CV mixers here. You could use something like that or a CV splitter of some kind, where let's say you want to take your mod wheel and have it control two things. You can't run a second cable out of mod wheel here and connect it to something else. You would have to connect it to a mixer module, and then two outputs from that mixer could go to controlling the amount here and controlling the frequency here, so that way you could control the amount and frequency with just your mod wheel. Now if you have other controller knobs on your keyboard, you might want to use two knobs, so then you could control the amount as well as the rate of your LFO with two separate knobs, giving you a little bit more control over that. So anyway, this is some of the basics here, and basically I wanted to let people know about this. This is a nice, fun, free thing to work with, to develop some skills in analog synthesis, or at least modeling it and seeing how Eurorack and modular systems work, and to kind of like learn the terminology and so forth. And I think something like this could be a good series for me to do, using this to teach synthesis, in addition to the series I have, Learning Synthesis with Pure Data. That involves learning synthesis as well as pure data at the same time. Something like this, you wouldn't have to learn as much programming and designing of things, because you got to build everything in pure data. Here you got pre-built modules that use the language of modular synthesis, and so this is where someone could learn, you know, what the words mean and everything. And you know, you can learn a lot with all the free downloads in the system. And so what I want to do is just leave it out there for anybody. If you would like to see more on VCV Rack, let me know, and let me know if you think it would be a good like tutorial series for synthesis, if you're interested in kind of like maybe going over some of the fundamentals and so forth, or if you just like me to make a bunch of things and then just show them to you every now and then. And for example, you can follow along and build the same things. So, you know, please leave a comment, let me know what you think. If, you know, I take requests. And now that I'm coming back and everything with my videos, I basically want to aim to please. So in any case, if you liked this video, found it helpful, please do hit the like button. It helps the videos be found by other people. And drop a comment if you have questions, or if you want to let me know of anything. Until then, maybe I'll see you next Sunday night. Maybe. That's a great way to end. No, I really do want to keep doing Sunday night synthesis as regularly as possible. Although I have to do a lot of grading next weekend. I don't know if I'll be able to get to it. At least within the next 2 weeks, there will be another Sunday night synthesis. How about that? Alrighty. Incidentally, if you want to save your stuff, you can. I'm just going to call this basic synthesizer. And I have actually I don't want to keep it in documents. I have a place where I'm going to keep my VCV Rack stuff. I think I made a folder. Oh, I think I didn't. So I'm going to put it here. VCV, how about that? And I'm just going to call this a basic. The file extension is VCV, so I'll just call this basic synth. Make sure that extension stays on there. Alright, and now if I just close it like this, the next time I open VCV Rack, it will open this by default. But you can clear it out and make a new blank rack if you wish to. Okay folks, that's it for Sunday Night Synthesis this week. I'll see you soon.